Welcome in, everybody. I don't even know what we're going to call this, Josh. This is, I guess, technically a little bit of an emergency pod, but it is a big day. It's kind of a recap of everything that has happened in Norman, the party in the palace over the weekend. Colton Vasek commits to Oklahoma on Monday afternoon, the 2023 weak side defensive end from Austin Westlake. Obviously, big deal. It's a school that Oklahoma hasn't gotten into very often. He's a Texas legacy. Josh, I know that we kind of previewed this weekend coming up, or the final weekend before everything kind of gets going with the start of the Oklahoma football season. We'll have the regular U40 coming up, I believe, this week on Wednesday. We have Media Day down in Norman on Tuesday, but let's stop dragging this out. It's a big weekend for Oklahoma. I think things went pretty damn well at the party at the Palace, probably a little bit better than everybody thought it was going to be. And today was kind of the first, tip of the iceberg as Colton Vasek commits to Oklahoma.
We've spent a lot of time the last few pods talking about, Josh told you guys to be calm. Man, sometimes you got to take your medicine. Colton Vasek, I didn't see this coming. I'm not even going to pretend. This is kind of what you and Bob were asking about in the last few pods.
Right.
Is there stuff that's going to catch you off guard? This is a surprise, because if you go and look on the site, honestly, we were so crazy this weekend, I haven't even had a chance to update it. He's not on the visitor list. He wasn't expected to be in. That was to my knowledge, that was a fairly late change in the game for him to come up. And he sent out some quotes to several different entities, but Nick Harris, our guy, ran a story where he talked about going up there, and he didn't expect to commit on that trip, and it just went so well. He was like, I knew this is where I had to be. This is where I wanted to be. And I think, you mix him with PJ Adebawore. Guys, I did something for Fun Facts, and, people can go check the board, but this hasn't happened. This doesn't happen where OU, in the next update, PJ Adebawore is probably going to be in the top 100. OU's history of landing two Rivals 100 defensive ends in the same class that has never, ever happened. And this is twice in the matter of a week or two where I'm talking about things that no one's ever done before at OU. And this is, I feel like I'm just going on and on, but it's just crazy what's happening right now. And that's even without all the other stuff that we can get into about, what this weekend may produce in the coming month.
And I guess let's just stay there. I think when you look at, especially today with Vasek's announcement, you look at Miguel Chavis, you look at Todd Bates, and it's kind of unbelievable that Brent Venables, Todd Bates, and Miguel Chavis haven't technically coached a game together at Oklahoma. And, they are celebrities. They are stars right now with what they are putting together, specifically on a defensive line group where we'll get into, I think everything that came out of the party at the Palace and David Hicks. But you look at what this group has done now. They're selling an idea. They're selling basically kind of a culture of what this Oklahoma program is right now. Just your kind of read on that. Obviously, Miguel Chavis played a big part in landing somebody that, again, was a Texas legacy. I don't think that can be emphasized enough, and particularly at a school where they just flat out haven't had any success.
I ran a quote that I got from somebody Saturday morning after I had found out he'd visited, and kind of before it was really so I woke up Saturday morning to a text that he may have committed, and I was like, no way. I don't believe it. But at the same time, again, I'll own I was very wrong on his recruitment, kind of throughout. I thought it was OU and Oregon at one point, and then following his official visit, I'd heard that it didn't go that well, and that maybe there was, just something there that didn't match up. And so I thought, well, okay, it's Oregon and Texas now. And I think Oklahoma just did an outstanding job making sure he felt like a priority, really working him hard. And I think in the end, like you said, it was the relationships he built. And what I started this, I got so sidetracked by, kind of admitting my wrongness in his recruitment, was the thing that bowled me over is I was talking to somebody that was like, if this staff was still at Clemson, he would probably already be committed to Clemson. And I was like, wow. So there was, even with his family's connections to Texas, there was so much respect for Brent Venables, Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis, all those guys. They loved him. They really did. I think there had to be a situation where Colton just said, this is what I want to do. This is what's best for me. And letting his family probably over time come to accept that idea. Like just, okay, like our son is going to go to the school we've known to hate for so long. Like I'm sure that's like I think about my dad and like me if I'd have went to Texas, like I can't even fathom it. I can't imagine. So, his poor head would have just popped off. But, you know, that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. And OU fans, you know, I get that you're excited, but you can probably relate of how the other half would live, you know, how that could be in reverse. So, and again, a kid from Austin Westlake, where OU has recruited hard through the years, really gone after a lot of big-time guys. Missed out on Jaden Greathouse this year, sure. the big tight end at Westlake, or tight end receiver, however you kind of look at him. And you get into that. I mean, it's just been a place where OU, for all the success they've really had around the greater Austin area, they've never been able to win at Westlake until now.
You know, it's also funny, and we were talking about it, you know, before we started recording, Josh, it's just the fact that it seems like for the first time in a while, the meltdown isn't on the Oklahoma side as far as losing a kid. What kind of player is Vasic? I think that you automatically turn on the tape, a pretty violent player at 6'6", 230, and I'm sure that he's going to get a little bit heavier once he gets into his senior season.
Well, you know, and I feel like we can't go a podcast right now without mentioning Jackson Arnold in some way. So we've got to say Jackson Arnold is very excited about this commitment because there is a clip early in Colton's tape of him taking down Jackson Arnold in the state championship game. They played each other, and I'm pretty sure Jackson's going to be excited that guy's not chasing him around anymore. But Vasic's a big, long guy. I mean, really, you're like that. I have yet to see him in person as ever. I will fix that coming into the football season. But this is, I mean, his length and his hands, like you watch just clip after clip of offensive linemen just trying to get to his body and they can't do it. He's so long that as they reach for him, he can get hands to them. And he's so, you know, you'd expect it from a program like Westlake. He's really well coached, really versed. Again, you know, with a father with a very serious football background, there is just a lot of technical advancement in his game. He's very far ahead, but at the same time, he's got a ton of room to grow. I mean, he's listed at 6'4", 220. That looks pretty accurate based on what I'm looking at on tape. And I'm really intrigued to see what Westlake does with him. There's some clips of him playing middle linebacker where they're bringing him, you know, I mean, he's blitzing is what you see on the tape, but they use him in a lot of ways. He's a really good athlete. I think maybe would surprise some people as they watch him and watch him move around. And that was the thing that stood out to me on tape. You could see a lot of quarterbacks that kind of, and you guys know how it is, like you've got these long-levered, long-limbed kind of guys. They don't look like they're moving that fast, and then all of a sudden they're on you. And you can see a couple of quarterbacks thinking, oh, I've got time. He's not going to be here for a second. And then they just get buried. There's one against Katy in state semifinals where, you know, obviously Westlake playing the great Katy program. And, you know, Vasic was a big part of Westlake just burying Katy. I think it was like a 4 or 5 touchdown win. I mean, that they really were dominant that day. So, he's a big time guy.
Sure.
I mean, there's no question, and you can see why OU made him such a focus.
Oklahoma up to 19 commitments now in the 2023 class. All of a sudden, number 7 in the Rivals team rankings. But, you know, obviously there's been a lot of attention, and Bob wrote about it this morning just as far as what kind of month July was for Oklahoma. They're now up to now 10 commitments. They have more 4-star commitments than 3-star commitments, believe it or not. I think that, you know, you told somebody that in the middle of June, they would have thought, what the heck, where'd this come from? But you look at all the wins on the defensive side of the ball. This kind of, you know, puts a little bit of a capitalization or an exclamation point next to Derek LeBlanc, Josiah Wagner, Lewis Carter, PJ Adebore. It even, I guess, in a way, started with Phil Picchiotti at the beginning of the month, Josh. It just seems like, I don't know how to explain it, and I want to get into the party at the Palace, but right now with what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball, it's amazing to me the level of buy-in. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but there is a level of buy-in without even having seen what this staff is going to put together on the field. And obviously that's going to come together here over the next month with practice starting on Thursday.
That you hit the nail on the head, Eddie. That's what's amazing to me is you knew there were a lot of defensive guys that knew who Brent Venables was and that he was already recruiting at Clemson, and that was gonna have some impact. I'll admit, even I'm surprised by how much this is resonating with these kids. Like, they really are buying into this is a whole new thing at Oklahoma. I mean, everything's going to be different. I mean, guys, like, we look at it. What do we always talk about? I mean, there is, and I keep saying guys, Eddie, sorry, I know it's just you and me here talking, buddy, but it really feels like these guys are, like, it's just been the slate being wiped clean. Like,
right.
Whatever is in the past is in the past, now is now. And, you know, we talk about it all the time. These guys, I mean, like, they want to win. They want to have success. But they're looking at NFL track record, and they're saying Todd Bates, Brent Venables, and, you know, Miguel Chavis is kind of weird to include in this, but clearly these guys believe in him and what he brings to the table. That these guys are the ones that are going to get me where I want to go. That they're going to help me get to the NFL. They're going to develop me. They believe in the track record that exists from their time at Clemson. It's not something where they're saying, well, let's see if it works at Oklahoma. They're buying in. And I think a big part of that, and I know we've talked about how much we hate this word continuing to be used with this staff, but it's just valid, is the energy. You know, we saw Miguel Chavis's tweet after the announcement of Colton Vasek.
Sure.
Just, they bring so much to these guys that I think it just becomes infectious, and then it makes them more open to what these coaches are telling them, what they're saying. This is our vision. This is where we can go. And like I said, I think it's really hard. It would have been hard for me to believe in June that they would be where they are with not only guys like Colton Vasek, because I mean, to me, this is one of the more surprising commitments in the last 5 or 6 years. Like, wow. This one bowls me over. I never would have believed this was possible.
Is it mainly because he's from Austin and all the angles there, or just, I mean, you talk about his official visit going even back to, I think it was the first week of June when he made it. The job that they did to stay after him, to keep continuing to get him to buy in, the fact that they even got him to Norman over the weekend, there has to be something that they're selling as far as the culture, and I'm sure that it doesn't hurt also that they have a good defensive line group that has come back that can kind of sell them on the idea of what they are trying to build. They worked with them during the spring, and now all of a sudden you look up, and it seems like everything they've been touching is kind of going to roses.
Well, just think, like, remove all that we think we know now. Just take, like, if we take OU, Texas, take all that out of it. This is a kid from your rival's hometown,
sure,
whose father played for your rival, who plays at a school that has never produced, or at least in the modern era, has not produced a player that played for your school. That on top of that, he's being recruited by a position coach who has never coached a game at the position.
It's amazing.
That is his primary like that's a non-starter. Like, you wouldn't even, like, if you wrote that up in a recruiting little bio, no, that school has no chance at that guy. And I am owning my guilt, and I added all that up and was like, no, there's no way this happens. And it's, again, man, it's a tribute to Miguel Chavis, and I think we can finally, you know, whatever. And I think we all acknowledge, like, we thought a lot of Jamar Cain, and I think there was a feeling like maybe that was the way this should have gone. You know, you could add Bates and Cain, and we talked about it. I don't know how you can question it now.
Sure.
Like, I mean, unless those defensive ends are just not up, you know, like, if for some anomaly here, which I just don't believe is a plausible, you know, ending to this story. Golly, I mean, that looks like an incredibly good hire. Like, it sounded like a flyer when it happened, and now you're like, I don't know how you got him away from Clemson.
Well, and it just kind of reemphasizes how important that week was when everybody kind of thought it was a little bit in limbo. It's like, okay, I think that they're going to get Todd Bates, or no, they had already gotten Miguel Chavis, and it was like, are they going to be able to get Todd Bates? And it, you know, they called themselves salt and pepper, you know, from day one. But it seems like that comfort and ability to know each other, to recruit alongside one another, is going to continue to pay off, and that kind of leads into the party at the Palace, where you walk away from the weekend And I mean, I know that we were talking a little bit about it in the war room with Bob. It just seems like, I mean, to say things went well is probably putting it lightly in comparison to not only today's news, but what could come down the road when you start talking about the David Hicks of the world. You start talking about Jordan Renaud. You start talking about, they're probably not loosely affiliated with it, but Jacoby Johnson, Makari Vickers now. It just seems like there is a certain something that they're able to do. Like I was talking to a buddy earlier, and it's like, it just feels different. I don't know how to explain that. There's not really any proof out there other than there's something that it is in the water in Norman right now that people are basically drinking up.
I put it in the Sunday notes that I put up, kind of just, and I didn't have a ton new, but I was like, people need to hear, like, this wasn't all just like some dream on Saturday. This really happened. And so I start writing it out, and since Thursday of last week, I have put in a forecast for obviously Colton Vasek, so that one's already down. I put one in for David Hicks, the number 12 overall player in the country, a 5-star defensive lineman from Houston, and as well as Makari Vickers, the Rivals 100 cornerback from Tallahassee. That's 3 Rivals 100 guys I pegged in the matter of like 4 days. And it just got me interested. I was like, well, let me see. And forgetting guys like PJ Adebawore and all the other guys that could be part of this class and where they may end up ranked, those 3 guys, Rivals 100 defenders, if Oklahoma were to land those guys, that would be the first time that, they haven't exceeded that total of Rivals 100 defensive players since the class of 2009.
That's amazing.
When Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator, Lincoln Riley was an inside receivers coach at Texas Tech, and Alex Grinch was coaching DBs in Wyoming. Like, that tells you, like, how far that this has gone on, or how long this has gone on, and how crazy what they're doing is for a staff that hasn't coached a game of football together yet. Like that, it's really, really hard. And I really, in May, again, like we joked about the start of the pod, I was trying to keep everybody calm. I don't think I could have written this in any way that would have felt plausible because it just keeps turning up in their direction. And I hear great stuff about the Jordan Renaud visit. Like I said, I think Makari Vickers, I think OU clearly leads right now. Jacoby Johnson, I continue to just think any day now. Like, I don't know what he's waiting on, and that doesn't mean like it's something bad. There's clearly something that he's not quite ready for. But again, our Michigan publisher put in a forecast for Oklahoma over the weekend. Like, there is nothing but positivity in OU recruiting right now. They're going to miss some guys. There's going to be some beats. It's inevitable. But right now, man, I don't think there's a school that's hotter as far. I mean, and I know like Alabama's landed some big guys, but I just mean as far as like every race they're in, they're winning right now.
I mean, I don't want to like make just bold proclamations, but I asked you over the weekend, like, you're talking about getting Vickers and Vasek, and then say they do get a David Hicks, and we can get into that here in a second. It just seems like over the last month, is this the most positive? And I some people were talking about this on the board, and it really made me start thinking, is this the biggest month Oklahoma's had in the recruiting, just as far as the amount of commits, the importance of some of those commits? It just seems like this is maybe one of the biggest months OU's had in a long, long time.
I can't think of
maybe
anything
more
close
so,
to
Josh, too, the fact that it is building momentum. And I mean, I remember talking here in the middle of June. It's like, do they just not believe in momentum? Maybe that's the difference between them and the previous regime. And now we look like absolute idiots.
I would say the month of July is probably the best recruiting month I've ever covered in 21 years with the network, with Rivals, with Sooner Scoop, the whole thing. Last weekend may end up being one of the most productive weekends I've ever seen, and did so with like 15 guys on campus. Like, it wasn't like, oh, they had 40 guys and landed 10 of them for a 25% hit rate. Like, you may end up signing the vast majority of guys who were on campus this weekend.
It's amazing.
And there were just one top tier dude after another. Like, right. It's unbelievable how high their success rate was. And I mean, what's crazy is we're talking about all this, and there's all these guys. Like I said, I mentioned Jordan Renaud in passing. Jordan Renaud in a lot of classes would be the premier chip of their defensive, class. He may end up a top 100 guy himself. I feel like I've glossed over him, and that's got nothing to do with OU's interest or where they feel about him or anything like that. It's just there is so much coming out of this weekend. And, when you talk to the players, the other recruits, like it really we always have read guys say, oh, we're not done yet. We're not done yet.
Right.
They're not. There is more to come out of this weekend. Like it's not even a debate for me. I woke up, like I said, I woke up on Saturday with a text message, and it was like 4 guys were believed to have made decisions. And one of them I can now say was Colton Vasek. And like I said earlier, I didn't believe it. And I was like, there's no way. No. And then a little later, it was like one more got added. One more. I got rumors of 6 guys that made decisions on Friday night. I don't know that like, don't get me wrong. Like, we'll see what happens.
Sure.
But I think that David Hicks not returning home, like he would have just had to drive back to Katy and he would have went right through College Station, or, could easily have done so.
Sure.
And chose not to. He just stayed in Norman and hung out on Saturday.
Is that almost more surprising than the Vasek news? Just as far as them almost kind of reinserting, like once Vasek makes the trip and then he, you do get word that he commits, it's like, okay, that's as surprising as that is. You can live with almost everything else. The Hicks news and him being the 5-star, him being the guy that I think everybody believes he could be. I mean, you're starting to talk about like maybe this class could be one of the best Oklahoma classes they've had, in 10, 15, 20 years of the Rivals era.
Yes. That when I got that news and was able to, because when you started to hear, things went really well with Hicks. Like it just went really good. And I started getting phone calls from, and I mention all the time, like you use the network, and I'm getting calls from reporters at other schools like, have you heard this? Like, did you know it? And they really thought they had news for me. And it was just like, okay, this is everywhere. Like, this is like, I'm getting national guys hitting me up. Like, did you hear something about this David Hicks visit? And I'm like, yeah. So like, that was the moment when I was like, maybe this is a top 5 class. Like, and I think this is the first time I've actually said that out loud. But like, if you get Hicks and you land a few other of these key pieces you're looking for, it's possible. It becomes a thing.
How surprising is that feedback nationally? Not to give away too much, but it just seems like now it's like, holy shit. Like, people are almost buying into this idea that like maybe Brent Venables is going to be okay. Maybe Miguel Chavis is going to be okay. Maybe Todd Bates really can do what he's done. And we were almost like negating his resume because we just didn't want to believe it in a way. It's not like we weren't doing that, but people from the outside in, it's like all of a sudden they've woken up to this idea like, well, maybe Oklahoma football isn't doomed.
I think, and I do want to step back for 1 second. I want to be clear to anybody listening. I spoke to David's father on Saturday, and he denied any of the commitment rumors that are out there.
Sure.
So I want to be clear. I don't want to put like a bullseye on David's back where they're like, what are you doing, man? Why are you waiting? Like, the family has said that didn't happen. So I will just say I think the visit went really, really well.
That's right.
But yeah, nationally, there's no question, because I think people forget that national guys, even really good national guys, they cover it from, 30,000 feet. Like they can't be as entrenched as even like most OU fans that are on our board or really follow recruiting hard, however they may follow it, probably have a better feel most of the time in recruiting than the national guys as far as what the vibe is around OU. Now, at the same time, the national guys are great because I can be like, well, okay, I'm hearing this on this guy that OU's recruiting. What are you hearing? They're like, well, I'm talking to this school and that school and that school, and the vibe is this. And so, like, you can kind of compare notes, and they have a little bit broader, it's like being under an umbrella. They're kind of covered all the way around. But yeah, I don't think there's any question that there has been nothing's happening. None of these guys are committing. We're hearing all these, flowery words, and these guys love OU and all this, but until it starts happening, it's really hard for a national guy to buy into it because they're hearing every school saying the same thing. Like every school is telling them, oh man, just give us a minute. It's about to really get rolling here. And I get it. Like it gets easy to filter that kind of stuff out. So I understand, but there's no question. Like nationally, people are taking notice. Like, this is not what we thought. And I think probably the hardest thing, Eddie, is the idea that Oklahoma can now go, and they are proving it. They can go and compete with anyone in the country for defensive recruits. Like they believe that, and they're showing they can do so.
Think about that statement. I think it's been so long since this specifically, like focusing on the defensive side of the football. I don't want to say they've arrived. They haven't won a game. They haven't gotten off the field on a third down quite yet. But it's still just like there is something there that I think Oklahoma fans, they have to feel positive about.
Well, again, I'll find a real easy way here to bring a little levity for OU fans. You remember when Arch Manning committed to Texas?
Sure.
Everybody nationally was like, well, this is proof. Like Arch knows what a good program looks like. He knows how it's supposed to operate. And like, I don't even disagree with that idea. Like, okay, he sees something there. Like in his family and, people that know football are telling him, yeah, this could work. So great. Okay. Like that was kind of again, I use this term a lot, but kind of a proof of concept. Like,
sure.
Clearly something's going right for a guy like that to make that decision. The same is now true for Oklahoma defensively. I think it's interesting that Jeff Lebby, the offensive coordinator, I feel like has been given more credence to what he'll just keep that ship rolling offensively. No, a ton of points. Meanwhile, defensively, everybody's like, well, Brent Venables, I don't know if he can get that going. And I admit, I was one who people would ask top 100 guys. When do we get to cheer for those kind of guys and those kind of recruiting wins? And I was like, guys, I think it's a year or two. Like, I think there's got to be some proof. He's going to go get some guys, the Lewis Carters, the guys like that are really good players, but maybe for one reason or another, they kind of slip through the Alabamas and the Ohio States and the Georgias. And OU goes and gets some good wins against, UF or Florida State or whoever it may be. Okay. You could have never convinced me they were going to go land elite guys that everybody in the country wanted. Colton Vasek, he chose Oklahoma over Dan Lanning at Oregon. He chose him over his hometown Texas team. He had a bunch of other offers he could have looked at, and he chose Brent Venables in Oklahoma. And like I said earlier, so much of it was due to that respect he has for that coaching staff and the affinity, like just the connection he has. Like I said, I told everybody to be calm 2 months ago. I get excited. Forget calm. Like, I get it, man. Like, this is, as a recruiting guy that's done this 20 years, I don't think I've ever seen OU on a roll like this. Like, and I feel like more good stuff is coming.
It's pretty unbelievable. We'll have the U40 coming up this week. We did want to just get a little bit of a reaction pod to see kind of what the pulse is out there. I'm sure that a lot of people are kind of wanting to know, like, just how great this is. They wanted to they want to feel good about themselves, and that's what we're doing over at Soonerscoop.com. Is that right? Is that right?
You know how you feel?
Do you have something to say?
Yeah, you know how you feel better? Go to Soonerscoopstore.com.
Yeah, there you go. Go to Soonerscoopstore.com.
Isaiah Thomas, we're clearing it out. $5 T-shirts, $10 hoodies. Sent a lot of them out this weekend, so go check it out. Also, still got the new Unofficial 40 gear coming up, and spent all day working over at the screen printers. We got some really cool stuff coming. Can't wait to show it to you, but not ready yet.
No, it's going to be exciting.
And,
it's time
and
to
some other great news for the merch of our future.
There will be
all kinds of stuff cooking.
We're now a merch site. That's basically what we are now.
Yeah, don't get that.
It's going to be
going to get them on the message boards all riled up. All Murdoch does is merch now.
F them.
Does he even know OU plays football?
Well, I don't know. When do they play a game? I don't know.
Carrie's got to put me on lots of planes all over this country, people. Okay, he's got to sell some merch.
I had
to choose merch over equipment this month. It sucks.
I want
right
people to know
decision.
there's nothing that hurts Kerry more than not being able to buy equipment. He's a bit of an equipment junkie.
Actually, yes. Broken laptops and broken cameras hurt me worse.
Fair enough. I've only done that once. At least break a camera.
At least
and that
you
wasn't
can
even
tell
my
me
fault.
what
That was a
happened to
JV
your
player.
camera. Yeah. Josh can't even tell us what happened to the laptop.
That is true. That is true.
People really should be excited. I
No,
tried to.
yep.
I wanted Ryan to run the board to kind of teach someone else how to do it. So that's why you hear Josh cut in and out a little bit. I was trying to. Our hand signals did not. We haven't developed those
We need to
yet.
work on. We need to work on the communication without communicating.
Well, we've got some SEAL team training coming to us.
That's
We're
right.
going to work on that. Yeah. That's next month.
I can't wait to drown somebody. It's gonna be fun.
But Media Day tomorrow is going to be fun.
Yeah, Media
Ryan
Day
gets
tomorrow.
his first taste of Media Day.
Media Day tomorrow.
Then Wednesday we'll have a regular U40.
Regular U40 coming up on Wednesday, and then obviously, I think that it's probably not over as far as the commitments go. Obviously, you got some waiting out there, and then obviously at the end of the month, right before the start of the football season, there's going to be a couple more that are deciding between Oklahoma and many national suitors.
I'm just
So
waiting for a recruit to blame Josh for putting in a forecast and ruining his moment.
It's going to happen.
That will be beautiful. Josh, we appreciate it. We will start incorporating a bunch of video and all that kind of stuff here moving forward. But we did want to get out there today and get a little bit of an emergency pod going because this is a big deal. So we will talk to you on Wednesday for the Unofficial 40.